So, this is part 10 of breaking down this F1 show special propaganda presentation by these 1 month on from the Abu Dhabi fix. Sky Sports are trying to present to people all this waffle to try and convince people that something's going to be done about it, and we're acknowledging that you in social media are still outraged by this, and this is what we're saying to you about it, and it's all a load of rubbish. Okay, it's not authentic. They know the truth. The truth never comes out in this. They're all paid to validate. So we'll carry on. Um, we'll see where they go with this. They've had in part 9, Slater and Kravitz have just said their pieces. So whether he brings Brundle back in, we'll wait and see.
If the FIA are always, or they have been, their own judge and jury, how does it change then going forward? Say, for example, we were to get a decision like this in the future. Do you think the teams might be pushing for an independent regulatory body to adjudicate over these kind of decisions? Are the FIA going to allow that? Surely that would weaken their position. Martin, what do you think is the answer there, and what will actually satisfy Mercedes' needs on this?
Okay, so we've got Lazenby, the anchorman there. We're now projecting this all on the FIA. Are the FIA their own judge and jury? And if this happens again, will the teams be looking to get a different governing body? And will this satisfy Mercedes? So, Sky Sports, who were involved in the fix, they narrated it. They lied about the rules of the sport before that happened. When Nicholas Latifi crashed, Martin Brundle and Crofty said, "Oh, this changes everything because we're bound to see a couple of racing laps now," when that wasn't possible. The average number of laps lost is 5.5. There were 5.4 laps remaining. So this notion of, there's bound to be a couple of racing laps is ludicrous. Okay? It was highly likely it was going to be a safety car finish, but they were directing the viewer to believe it was possible to see racing. They were lying about the possibilities. They were lying about the rules of the sport, saying, they don't have to release the lapped cars. It's not mandatory, I don't think. But how long will they wait? Well, you have to release the lapped cars. You can't leave them in situ. You can't leave Lando Norris disadvantaged relative to Pierre Gasly in the same way that he was. You can't just release 5 of them because you can't leave Carlos Sainz blocked off from challenging second position in the way that he was. You have to give those release cars at least 1 lap of the track to try and catch the back of the pack to restore sporting fairness. But you're lying all the time. And then on lap 57, when you know that the cutoff is the end of lap 56 to release those lap cars, you're still saying, I think the safety car will come in at the end of this lap and we will have 1 late racing lap. And all those cars in between will get blue flags. It's all a load of rubbish. But this is what you said, Sky Sports, before it happened. And then, immediately afterwards, yes, incredible. This is brilliant. Max fully deserved it. You're seeing the best thing ever. Wow. Right? You didn't say, whoa, 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 whoa. This is not okay. The only person that did that was the guy in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, the village idiot. That you purposefully got to do that because he's the easiest one to undermine and go, no, you don't know what you're talking about, Ted. You're not a former F1 driver. Just, you don't worry, little head, about it. Us, the experts, will tell you about this. It was a bit controversial. But Max fully deserved it. That's all you did. Validated it. Paid to validate it. Never told the truth of the situation. Never exposed that this was entirely fixed. Never focused on the crux of the matter. Never focused on the elements that if people knew, they'd see how fixed it was. You can't just write it off as an error because it wasn't an error. Anyway, Martin.
You can go to the civil courts in any sporting situation, but usually, in my experience, they're first and foremost, those law courts will say, go to your governing body. That is the organisation that is there to adjudicate on these things. But it has happened in the past with Flavio Briatore, for example. So yes, maybe somebody else to look at the system, but the International Court of Appeal is supposed to be very neutral in this.
Courts are supposed to be very neutral. Courts are supposed to be not corrupt. So let's test the theory. let's test whether or not they're corrupt. You take the case to them, which is what Mercedes should have done, and see what they're going to rule. Okay? And if they are corrupt, you then take it to a different court to expose their corruption, which is what I said in the previous video. You show that the court that you have taken it to is corrupt, and therefore they need eradicating, and they are clearly not a valid court. So they serve no purpose whatsoever. You destroy them. You are no longer an entity because you're corrupt. You're not fit for purpose. So, in fact, because you are in a position of responsibility, there is a punishment for being corrupt in that position of power. That's what you do.
And you know, and we've seen it in the past working quite well. So, how many layers and levels do you want to put into place? At the end of the day, you've got to trust your governing body.
Yeah, but then why?
Indeed, you have got to trust your governing body. But what you've also got to trust, Martin, is the broadcaster, those who construct the footage to show the fans what's going on and interject with the messages that are actually relevant and actually relevant in accordance with what is possible, in accordance with the rules of the sport. So that's F1 TV. They didn't do that. You've got to trust your contracted broadcaster being able to comment on the sport, commentate on the sport with truth, with regard to the rules of the sport, what is possible and what isn't, and what we are going to see, likely to see, based on real eventualities, not on eventualities that are only possible if you break the rules of the sport. That's what you did, Martin Brundle. You've got to be able to rely on our broadcasters, our media, if we want to hear the truth. Clearly, we can't do that because media is controlled. Media serves the billionaires who feed them the money, and then all they do is they give out the narrative that they're being paid to present. That is corrupt. That is not the purpose of media. And if that is what you're doing as a media entity, is just serving corruption, then you yourself are corrupt. You're complicit. That is what you've done.
Why continue if you don't, Craig, trust your own governing body?
I think it was said earlier, Crofty said that mistakes have been made. Now, what we haven't had so far is an official admission mistakes have been made. I'm not sure Mercedes want to turn the Formula One world upside down. They've accepted Max Verstappen.
Mercedes want to turn the Formula One world upside down. No, it's not. Again, what you're doing, you're always projecting this as a Mercedes thing. It's a Mercedes problem, and do they want to do this? No, this is the entire sporting world of Formula One. This is the entire sport of Formula One. Nothing to do with, just let's isolate this as being a Mercedes problem that they feel that they've got a problem with. Yes, Lewis Hamilton was the victim in this particular incident, but it's not a sport if it's conducted like this. That's not what you sold this to everybody as being. So therefore, by conducting it this way, you've defrauded everybody. So, you need to do something about it. You never have. Instead, you put these heads in front of us so that they can twist the narrative and make you think about it in these terms.
As champion, Toto Wolff and Lewis Hamilton both congratulated him. Surely, let's hold them to what they've actually said, that they want more robust decision making, an end to ad hoc tinkering with the rules, and clarity and consistency in that. So I think an admission that what was done in Abu Dhabi wasn't right, maybe under the pressure of the circumstances, that would go a long way to suiting them and to calming them. Might they want the removal of one or two individuals? I don't think they're necessarily alone in questioning Michael Massey's position as race director. So let's see how he fares.
So what you're saying then, Craig Slater, having been asked a question, you're saying, well, to calm Mercedes down, They want to see the FIA admit that things were done wrongly. Right, that's the solution, is it? We've just witnessed a fraud, but actually, to calm Mercedes down, they want to see an admission that things were done wrongly. Well, if things were done wrongly, then how do you rectify that? You change it. If it's done wrongly, and you've got the power to change it, which you clearly have, right? In sport, if something happens that's wrong, you can change it. If somebody gets killed, that's pretty final, isn't it? All right? You can't bring them back. You can punish the person that was at fault, whether that was a murderer, whatever it might be. You can apply a consequence, but you can't change what has happened. It's final. In sport, in certain events, and in other facets of life, if there is an injustice, you don't have to say, oh, it's happened now, there's nothing we can do about it. You can say, well, that's wrong, and we can change that. We can rectify it. We can make it right. So that's what we'll do. We'll make it right. Those that are just going, oh, something's happened and it's wrong, but there's nothing we can do about it. Absolutely rubbish. Absolute bullshit. Oh, yeah, somebody's broken into our house and stolen all of our stuff. We know who they are, but there's nothing we can do about it. Well, yes, you can. You can go and get all that stuff back, right? And you can punish the people who stole it. Otherwise, what kind of society are we going to be? Oh, yeah, we know that there's a problem, but there's nothing we can do about it. That is the purpose of having rules in the first place. That is the purpose of having consequences. Let's not pretend, oh, there's nothing we can do.
Daly's point, Simon, is a wider thing about the sort of random FIA governance that we've had this year. And this extends to driving standards as well. And they just think that the Mercedes can own. And let's face it, Mercedes have a hell of a lot of leverage here, don't they? So in a sense, whatever they want from the FIA, they're likely to get. And they want.
Look at Kravitz here. Oh, Mercedes are so powerful and have got leverage. So if they want Max Verstappen to be penalised, then they can get Max Verstappen to be penalised. No. Look at the way you are trying to project this. There is a clear problem within the sport of a certain driver driving a certain way, which is dangerous. And that sport allowed him to do so. Now, it was happened to be that Lewis Hamilton, driving a Mercedes car, was the victim of that. He was the one that had to adjust his line going into a corner in Spain, otherwise there would have been a collision. He was the one that had to leave the track in Imola, otherwise there would have been a collision. He was the one that had to leave the track in Monza, otherwise there'd have been a collision. He was the one that had to leave the track in Brazil, otherwise there'd have been a collision. He was the one that had to leave the track in Saudi, otherwise there'd have been a collision. He was the one that had to leave the track in Abu Dhabi, otherwise there'd have been a collision. That driving is not acceptable. Don't say, oh, Mercedes have got a lot of leverage over this. No. Clamp down on unacceptable driving, which was the driving displayed by Max Verstappen that you enabled. It's as simple as that. Clamp down on it. Don't allow it. Penalise it. Penalty points. That system already exists. That can tot up to a race ban. If somebody purposely tries to take out their opponent, you can ban them from the entire season, like what happened to Michael Schumacher. There are already consequence systems in place for that type of conduct. They ignored the conduct. They enabled it.
To put in place some new rules about how we go racing, about whether...
We don't need new rules. Them rules have been developed over decades. They are understood by all drivers. Unless, of course, you're part of the Red Bull stable, where the lick the stamp and send it style of driving, which has now been celebrated, and these strap-on fanboy children seem to think that that's an acceptable way of driving, is the norm in F1. No, because you don't see the other drivers driving that way. They all seem to get it. They all seem to realise what's acceptable and what's not. but drivers from a certain stable think, oh, we can get away with doing this.
Some strong arm driving standards are going to be actually enforced and regulated.
So what you're saying is, and again, what you're projecting, Mercedes think this, Mercedes has got power, Mercedes. When have you ever said, Red Bull? When have you ever said, the power that Red Bull is exerting over the FIA for the FIA to break the rules in the favour of Red Bull? When have you said that? When have you said, the pressure that Red Bull has over the FIA, which enables their driver to get away with driving like that, is the problem? When have you said that? You haven't, have you? You're not in any way identifying this issue that Red Bull seem to have the controlling influence in this sport. And then we get 6 months down the line, we get the acknowledgement, Red Bull is the only team that's cheated, but the governing body's not going to penalise them. We're going to give them a fine and a reduction in wind tunnel testing, and we'll claim to everybody, that's really going to affect them so badly. Yeah, it looks like that, doesn't it? Looks like that.
And we're not going to have all the nonsense that we had last year. They also want the fact that no team principal will be able to talk and influence the race director during a race, and I think that's something that's going to happen as well. But it's really something that needs to happen quite quickly.
Right. In every sport, there is this notion of the interaction between teams, coaches, and the officials. It's quite easy to stamp that out. Don't use that as the excuse for what took place in Abu Dhabi, but you keep introducing that notion again. It was Toto Wolff on the radio telling him not to throw a safety car during that virtual safety car period. Yeah, that's just not acceptable, is it? Yeah, he didn't say it when Christian Horner and Jonathan Wheatley are on the radio lobbying to break the rules of the sport to set up a fixed outcome. Red Bull on the radio asking for the referee to break the rules of the sport to facilitate the ending that they want. What's the problem? What's the real problem there?
Because nobody can move on, can they, until the FIA actually...
Absolutely right, Ted. We're not going to move on from this. We're not going to move on until justice is served, until the global population is woken up to seeing what you did. Those are the three pricks around you, and everybody else working for F1, Sky Sports F1, Formula One itself, the FIA, Liberty Media. You're all going to be exposed.
Explain their decisions, the rationale and the intent behind those decisions in Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
The intent behind them. I wonder what they were. It's not obvious to know what the intent was. Yeah? We just wanted to see a racing finish. No, you can't do that. You can't do that because you can't break the rules to facilitate a certain ending. We just wanted to see a penalty shootout, so that's why we awarded one of this teams a goal to make it a draw, so it would go to a penalty shootout. No, you can't do that. If you've broken the rules to gift a team a goal to turn it into a penalty shootout, it's clearly corrupt. We just wanted to see a last lap shootout, so we broke the rules to make it happen. That's not valid, is it? It's corrupt. What's the intention? We just wanted to see some drama. You knew what was going to happen there. You know that one car's on soft compound tyres, one's on old hard compound tyres. You know what's going to happen over one lap. But we just wanted to see that. Well, you just wanted to see one guy win then. That's fixing a result. We wonder what the intention was. I wonder. Let's do a report on that, shall we? Let's spend 3 months and get an expert to write a report. No, we don't need that. We don't need that bullshit. Okay? It's quite easy. It's quite easy. That's what happened. That's wrong. That's not allowed to happen. What anybody thinks, I think that they wanted to do this. I think that they wanted to do that. I don't care what anybody thinks or what anybody writes in a report. It's clear. To anybody with half a brain, it's clear.
Craig, thanks very much for the moment. Let's bring in Rachel Brooks, who is our social media correspondent on this one, has been across everything that's been going on because they're...
there we go, the social media correspondent. So they're well aware of what is being talked about. and they're well aware of what they need to respond to, because if they don't respond to it, then people recognise that the mainstream media is trying to cover stuff up. So they pretend that they're addressing it.
It has been. We talked about it, didn't we, Rachel, all season about either Lewis or Max, that polarised opinion. Unless you're a Max fan here, all the vitriol seems to be aimed at the FIA. Is that continuing?
Again, what we're trying to do, we're still trying to maintain this polarisation. Oh, it's either Lewis fans or Max fans or the FIA. Nothing to do with you, Sky Sports F1, is it? You're just there talking about it and trying to make sense of it, all of this muddle.
It is, but actually, Simon, what's been really interesting about this is it's not just Max fans versus Lewis fans. This is the fans versus the FIA in this instance. It's much bigger than just the driver rivalry that
Absolutely right, Rachel.
we have seen throughout the season.
53 minutes into a 1 hour 13 presentation that we finally get, this is the fans saying this is outrageous. This is not just about, oh, I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan and therefore there's a problem. Oh, I'm a Max fan, I don't think it's a problem. No, this is the sport. This is a problem. This is corruption. This is fraud.
When you think about that race and you think about the audience we had that weekend, it's the biggest audience we've had in a very, very long time for a Formula One race. So many new fans coming in to watch.
108.7 million people is what the sport reports. Okay? And there's probably more then that got to find out about that. They didn't watch the race live, but then they got to hear about it. So the number of people that have got or feel they've got an understanding of this is bigger than 108.7 million. These are the minds that you've conditioned. These are the people you've lied to. This is the impact you're having as a global media force.
What we'd all been talking about and trying to enthuse about all season. And they left confused. These new fans left very confused. They didn't understand what had gone on. A lot of us left confused as well, and we've been in it a long time. And
right, if you're confused by it, then you need to examine your credentials for being in the job. Okay, because there was a high proportion of viewers who had watched that event, me being one of them, whereby I knew that what was taking place wasn't allowed to take place. I knew that as those lapped cars weren't released by the end of lap 56 and it was lap 57 where that unlapping procedure started but not carried out in full, I knew that then lap 58 had to be a mandatory safety car lap. So by only releasing 5 lapped cars, the FIA has broken the rules of the sport, and then by immediately bringing in that safety car immediately after the release of just 5 of 8 lapped cars, it's breaking the rules of the sport again. I knew that real time. I wasn't confused by that. I knew that that was unacceptable. What did you, the broadcaster, say to people? These new fans that you'd attracted, and Martin will go on to say something like a third of the viewers that were watching it on Sky Sports, they were new to the sport. And yet the sports experts, those commentators, those people that are tasked with educating these fans, what did you tell them? How did you educate them? You didn't, did you? It was, wow! And it's ending, wow! The World Championship's going to go and be settled on the last lap of the last Grand Prix of the season. Incredible, everybody! This is the most exciting thing you've ever seen! Oh, we're all a bit confused by this. And fans are confused. Oh, really? Really? Where's that confusion come from? Really? Because I wasn't confused. I knew it was wrong. As did thousands, millions of others. So what's going on there? What's going on there? Let's just project the blame on everyone else. Oh, yeah. It was the FIA's fault. It was Michael Massey's fault. Wasn't F1 TV's fault that were creating the false narrative. Wasn't Brundle and Crofty's fault who were lying about the rules of the sport. Wasn't the 4 stewards' fault who upheld the Red Bull opinion in that steward's appeal that Red Bull shouldn't have been invited into. Wasn't the greater FIA their fault when they've just gone, oh, Mercedes failed to lodge their appeal by the Thursday, they withdrew it. So therefore, we'll just do a review instead, rather than uphold the real rules, set a precedent for this clear corruption that's taking place. It's all confusing, isn't it? Just confusing.
Those hardcore fans, the existing long-standing fans, they're very knowledgeable. They know what the precedents are, and they saw something they...
And you're just trying to lie to us all. That's how filthy you are. Because you don't care about those that have been involved in the sport or been following the sport for a long period of time. All you care about is attracting the kids. Attracting the kids that are into Instagram and TikTok and that get excited by a little 30-second F1 clip. They get excited when the drivers are doing Secret Santa. Yay! Hey, isn't that great for F1 social media? You know, these little wankers, right? They love that, don't they? They're the ones that you want to attract because they're the future spenders. They're the future spenders. The future who've got the money are going to spend on these expensive brands that want to put their stickers on a Formula One car. That's what you're trying to attract to the sport. Tell them that, oh, it's so exciting. This is such an exciting sport that you'll love. You'll love this. It's great. But you won't understand it. And if we can condition your minds that you're just enjoy it because you're not going to understand it, then this is what's going to then extrapolate into greater society. Yeah, there's nothing you can do about injustice. Just live your best life. We'll look after it for you. You live your best life. Keep spending your money. Don't stand up for injustice. But just laugh at a 30-second TikTok. Oh, 30 seconds is too long for you. Make that 20. Make it 10.
Hadn't seen before. So there was a lot of anger, and that's understandable, but that hasn't gone away. And that's what's really important in this, I think, because as Ted was saying, you know, if we move on from this, we need answers, we need the FIA to explain it. The fans need that. They haven't forgotten this.
We need the FIA to explain it. So we need the FIA on their global media platform to stand in front of the world and say this has gone wrong. You as journalists can't do that, no? This, our 13-minute long presentation, none of you have been able, as people who work within this sport, have been able to stand there, where you're sitting down, and say to the world, this is the problem, this is what took place. This is what should have happened, this is why it should have happened. This is why this result cannot stand. It completely altered the outcome of both the race and the World Championship. That has invalidated that race and World Championship by it happening. It cannot be allowed to stand. It's not right. It's an injustice, and therefore it needs to change. It's possible to change it, so it needs to be changed. Very simple. And none of you have ever said it. Strange that, isn't it? Strange that.
They are still as loud and vociferous as ever. There's a lot of feeling that Mercedes couldn't plan for the regulation that was used. Normally teams try and plan for regulations being implemented. They couldn't.
Normally teams try and plan for the regulations being implemented. Yeah, kind of standard, isn't it? You know, Pep Guardiola preparing his Manchester City team for a Champions League game. Well, I'm planning to have 11 players on the pitch, but I might set them up in training, 14 aside, just in case the regulations change and we can play 14 aside football. Because we don't know which regulations are going to apply on the day. You know, normally we plan for the regulations, plan for the sport to be conducted in accordance with the rules of the sport, but you never know. You never know, because in F1, anything can happen. What a load of bollocks. What a load of bollocks.
Plan for what happened in that race, so they can understand from that point of view. They're calling.
But that's just a point of view. That's just a point of view, not a material fact. It's a Mercedes point of view, or material fact.
Investigation to be independent, as Ted said. It's marking your own homework. Do they trust the FIA to investigate the FIA's decisions on this?
It's marking your own homework. No, this is a mass conspiracy where parties from different organisations have conspired to generate an outcome. oh, it's just the governing body marking their own homework. No, it's F1 TV are involved. It's Sky Sports F1 that are involved. It's Red Bull who are involved. It's Liberty Media involved. It's the sport as itself. None of them complained other than Mercedes. They're all involved. Mercedes then didn't follow through with an appeal that they would have won. So they're involved. Oh, it's just the FIA. Really? Just the FIA? Not really, is it?
The FIA need to get this right, because they need to convince
the FIA need to get this right. Yeah.
fans that they've got their house in order and that the sport's integrity is not in question. And that's what the fans are calling into question right now. We've seen a lot of reaction to it. We've seen a lot of celebrity reaction to it. I mean, we've all been bombarded with messages from people, and we understand it. We're fans of the sport as well. And I think that's really important. We had a tweet from an American footballer, an NFL player, JJ Watt. He's got 5.6 million followers. And
so that's all that matters to them. Oh, there's somebody here and they've got a bit of a platform to reach 5.6 million people. So that's important. If you've only got a YouTube channel with less than 2,000 subscribers, that doesn't matter. That's not important. That's insignificant. We don't need to worry about that. But as soon as you've got 5 or 6 million people following you and you say something that's saying that this is wrong, oh, we need to do something about that, because that is potentially dangerous to us.
He said that's insanity. Now, that's a lot of reach, and that's a lot of reach in America, which is a market that Formula One seemed to have broken into this year. Let's not lose those American fans as well, because we're still trying to explain the sport to them in a lot of
You're really not. You're not trying to explain the sport to somebody. It's not a difficult concept. But you're trying to convince them of lies. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to convince them that somehow there was scope within the rules and regulations for what took place in Abu Dhabi 2021. You, the contracted broadcaster, trying to do that. Anyway, let's try and get to the end of what she had to say, and we'll cut this video off at the end of that.
Instances. But also the fans are asking, what kind of sport do we have if the race director can apply regulations that in their eyes seem to be controlling a narrative?
Oh, the fans are saying that in their eyes seem to be controlling a narrative. Why are you always saying in their eyes, or they think, or their feeling is, when you don't need to frame it like that? They are material facts. That decision controlled the narrative. That affected the race. It's not in their eyes, it affected the race. Well, it did. It's not about in their eyes. It actually did. When the regulations, when you apply them, that race needs to end under the safety car. No alternative. That means that there is no overtaking. That it means that the running order behind that safety car, with Lewis Hamilton being at the front, means he wins that race. But in the fans' eyes, it means that the race directors affected that. He clearly affected that. Look at the way you just present this. This is how filthy you all are.
Now, this sport's phenomenal. It's really entertaining, but I think the concern from fans at the moment is it entertainment, and is the entertainment now more important than the sporting competition? And that's an answer that really needs to be answered by the FIA.
And again, you use this term entertainment. The entertaining part of watching sport is seeing sporting competition. Okay, seeing a sporting contest that's authentic. When you're seeing competitors compete in accordance with the rules that they're all competing to, and seeing who wins on merit. Now, there's an element of that that's not merit in this sport because of the machinery being a huge component. However, breaking the rules of the sport to facilitate one person winning is in no way acceptable. And a global sport doing that, a professional sport doing that, a sport which people have to pay for watching, and people bet on, contriving outcomes constitutes fraud, constitutes crime. And you're all part of it. Anyway, that'll do for this one. Part 11 will be coming up soon.